Well, hello, Michael.
Hi,
Uh,
Julie.
Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. It's a real pleasure to welcome with us Michael Ballet, one of the most influential voices in the Lean community. Yeah. For more than 30 years, Michael has been studying and leading Lean transformations on the Gemba and working directly with CEOs. And I had the privilege of working closely with Michael over the past year. And we are currently writing a new book together on how lean CEOs transform themselves in order to transform their companies. Much of that learning comes directly from the kind of insights he's going to share with you. Well, today Michael will take us right to the heart of this question. What are we actually transforming when we talk about lean transformation? Michael, thank you for being with us today, and the floor is yours.
Thank you, Julie. Okay, so here's the main equation for this talk. So if you are confused, I'll keep the mystery going on. P equals L times O. So what do I mean by this? This is the one thing that if you don't understand this equation, please don't do lean and just do something else. This is too dangerous. P equals performance, lean times O organizations. One of the reasons I see lean transformation is so difficult is that people tend to apply lean without understanding what they're applying lean to, which is understanding the organization. So we have two different objects here. One is how the organization works, and this has increasingly disappeared even from business schools and replaced by finance classes. It used to be a topic in every course on administration, how an organization functions. Now, what people tend to think of an organization is the organizational chart, which is like thinking of a cow in terms of legs and heads and tail. It doesn't tell you much about how the cow actually works. So to understand an organization, first, it's there for a purpose. It actually makes a service or products for customers. This is what its reason for being. This is why it's set up in the first place. If you're a craftsman, you can do it on your own. As soon as it becomes complex, you create an organization. So what happens is then you create processes. Processes is just that because it's too complicated for one person to do it all, now we break it down into steps. And these are a process is nothing but sequential dependent steps. You know, you have to procure the part to assemble them, to actually put them on store somewhere and then sell them. So now we have a process. Each of these steps is actually dependent. And what we've understood since the 18th century is that division of labor allows us to do this more efficiently. So the problem is that we divide labor into smaller and smaller and smaller bits. Then, of course, we have institutions. These processes don't happen on their own. You know, for everyone to work, somebody has to send the information of the material, they have to give them the equipment, they have to train them, they have to follow some kind of method. Of course, there's all sorts of controls that are involved here. Somebody has to make sure that at the end of the day we make money, so there's a finance function. Somebody has to sell it to customers, so then you have a marketing function. So you have these various institutions that build up that are usually by type of activity, by trade, and they do what they do. Finance is only interested in finance, and the truth is they report to whoever checks the IRS or things like that. They don't necessarily report to you as an institution. Or marketing wants to win marketing prizes of the best campaign, not necessarily what is the best for the business. And production, of course, only wants to produce. Or engineering wants to use the best leading edge, leading edge techniques, and not very worried about what people want. In any case, the institutions develop, they're absolutely necessary to understand because they support the processes that makes products and services happen for customers. And then these things are connected. They would like to work independently, but they don't. So usually, but they're connected, and this network of connections is usually what explains the high transaction costs that we have inside the firm, because these connections, these interfaces don't happen well. So one thing we've understood about organizations is that they tend to be called what we call highly coupled. Everything is linked to everything else. You change something somewhere, it affects everything else. It's like a pillowcase. You squeeze it, and then it goes somewhere else. But loosely linked, which is that when somebody finishes to do the job, they send it over the wall, and the link is very loose in terms of quality and delivery. Now, this creates also this is what creates the most problems in an organization, these loose links.
Mm.
And of course, permeating all this, you have culture. Culture is how people imagine themselves and how people behave and how people react. And it's mostly culture that explains, that interprets each of these four levels of the organizations are constantly interpreted by culture. And culture is not a fixed thing. It's a constant negotiation between the meaning that leaders want to put on them and the meaning that people want, the meaning that the sense that people give it. So this is a constant negotiation between where you want to take the organization and as it fights back. So basically, then you have the leader, all the leaders, and the leaders is trying to influence all of this. So my first point is that before we even consider lean, we have to understand these four levels of organizations. This can't even count these five levels of what makes a collective, what makes it stick together, and how they function together. Because if we apply lean as a method, we have to understand what we do with it. So what happens is that as organizations grow, they develop big company disease. They all do. The first thing that happens is that they lose their product market fit. Suddenly, the product market fit is no longer important. What is important is doing what we do. This is why we read in the press every week that some organization lost themselves. Suddenly, they're no longer growing. They're no longer profitable. Truth is, they forgot about the customers. They're so busy with themselves, they don't care what they deliver. One of the great books I've read recently is called Enshittification, that explains this process with digital companies, and it's fantastic. First, you do something useful for users, then you exploit users for the client, who's another company, then you exploit the client for your finance, and at the end of this process, you end up with something that has no value for anyone. This is a normal process with growth and age. How does it break down this? You lose the product market fit because actually processes become more important than solving customer problems. Then, of course, because we build these institutions, this creates turf war between the institutions as opposed to cooperating. Now, another aspect of a large organization is that they promote skilled incompetence. Skilled incompetence is the people who are incompetent but very good at it. So they say the right things and they wear the white suits and they shine the shoes of the right people and they have the right answers, but they're completely wrong in what they do. They're still incompetent, but they're really good at it. And large organizations love skilled incompetence because they're so polished and they won't disturb the institution. And the last thing that these institutions do is that it's very hard, and even no matter how hard you try, it's very hard to distinguish legacy and heritage. Legacy is what you want to get rid of, heritage is what you want to maintain. So basically, lean is that we understand that the cost of big company disease is waste. This is a difference between value and the no value we create. Remember, Julie, in Japan, Amezawa-san saying, no value, no value, no value, no value, value, no value, no value, value. This is really the heart of lean thinking. And no value is really created by our misconceptions. The things we don't understand correctly, of course, we do them wrong, which creates waste. So my first example here is a very large company. It's Veolia of water, distributes water all over France. We're talking 20 million users, 3 billion euro turnovers, 15,000 employees, 2,200 managers. I mean, this is big company. And the client here, the users are you and I, and the clients are local communities. So here we have the CEO on the Gemba, and I asked him, Pierre, why do you lean? Why did you choose to lean? And this is what he says. He says, lean is a proven strategy to grow the business by developing our team members and managers. So he's really looking at the business in terms of developing these layers that I'm talking about. Better understanding how the organization works, increased focus on customers and operations. This is back to big company disease. Learning to learn is an interesting one. These are his words. This is verbatim. Learning to find out what's going on beyond the reports, learning the discipline and humility and trust, and a more systemic vision of the human and entrepreneurial path of the business. So again, he's looking at his organizations and he needs something to make it better. And this is why he chose Lean. So what does it give him? Well, this is what it gives him. It's like it clarifies the levers of where you get performance from. What makes us win? What makes us lose? It transforms from a process culture to a continuous improvement culture. It concentrates on value for clients and customers. You take better care of your teams and you reduce stress from avoidable mistakes. And you align the managerial culture on purpose. So here you see from a very senior leader, here's Pierre on the Gemba, you see him, very senior leader of a very large organization. His main problem is culture. And he uses Lean to get the organization working through that top layer we discussed, culture. So how does he do it? We have these tools, we'll look into it, but we have some examples. A3s for managers. These are one of their slides, not mine. Oh, hey, here's a sensei, Cecile on the photo. Hello, Cecile. PDCA for the team leaders. And we have this, what they call 5 columns, which is essentially problem solving for people on the ground. So the point is that big company disease is an unavoidable effect of growth. And the problem of a CEO like Pierre is how does he fight big company disease? And interestingly enough, the way he's going to fight it is through culture. The question is, how do you do so? How do you fight it through culture? Well, we have a very, this is the, you were mentioning the book, this is the book, this is what's in the book. We have a very layered approach for each of these layers. On the Gemba, it's about visualizing customer difficulties and solving the problems. Then at the process level, this is what everybody does with VSM. We need to map the processes and create improvement workshops to make the process work better, particularly at interfaces. Then this gets tricky. You need to get to a functional management to respond to team member issues. This is the whole Jidoka part of Lean, and creating a chain of help as opposed to a chain of command. And this is a very big change. This is very difficult to do. And finally, where it all comes together is when you start synchronizing the function. This is what just-in-time logistics helps us to do, is by synchronizing the functions, we make the whole work better and less costly. So all of this means that really how you change the culture is through learning the TPS, practicing the TPS, and teaching the TPS to encourage the values that are carried by the total production system in terms of what Amizama, you're right, it's 2 things he told us is value, no value. And the other thing is always look at how do you make Gemba people life easier. And these are the 2 main values that the sensei taught us, and this is how you teach them. It's okay, not going too quickly. I'm still running out of time, so here's a definition of Lean. Lean is a method to make work and processes visible in order to recognize problems, creating waste, and learn how to solve them one by one, and not globally, just one by one, to learn to improve these processes. Here's another example, which is a very large hospital in Paris. It's focused on psychiatry and neurosciences. We're talking about 60,000 patients in psychiatry and 6,000 in neurosurgery. This is a different setup, again, when you look organizationally, because it has 110 structures on 10 sites, 5,000 staff, 600 doctors. Imagine that. and a budget about 450 million euros. Here's the CEO, Guillaume, on the Gemba with his head of nursing. And this is an interesting one. I won't go into this, but because they've been doing this for a while now, several years, and they've developed a full system for the lean implementation. You see there, you can see the different levels of hierarchy and problem solving. This is just a slide to show the system as a system.
Mm.
So what does it mean for the CEO? He says lean is the same thing. It's his words, his verbatim, a strong frame of reference. Again, the culture, the frame, improving patient care by making caregivers work easier. That's a very, very strong. That's an extremely strong mission. It really orients everybody on something very concrete. Putting patients back at the center of every discussion, continuous learning with a sensei about the CEO role and how a hospital really functions, and of course, a deep understanding of the Gemba as an anchor to the whole approach. For the hospital, what we get is better cooperation between medical, nursing, and administrative logic. Oh, by the way, we wrote a book which is called L'Hôpital Apprenant about this approach. Better cooperation, better atmosphere in the wards, very important, and a management culture that is both caring and demanding. So again, you see from the CEO of these very large structures, they're really trying to change the culture.
Mm.
Wait times in the emergency ward were cut by 2/3, while patient flow increased by 30%. Energy use dropped by 20%. Staff satisfaction rose by 7 points in 1 year. It's because it was very difficult to get to measure that, but they just started. And long-term bed occupancy increased by 10 points, now close to 100%. It shows us that many of the issues everybody tells us are impossible to solve in healthcare are very, very solvable. So here's the secret. We have to get everybody to solve the right problems. Now, very naturally, what happens is when we talk to people, they're crazy about their solution. They always have a solution to it, and we don't understand the problem. Then when we look into the problem, we realize the problem is rarely what we thought, what they thought. The problem is usually something else. Again, the 5 whys, we need to figure out the problem. So really the secret to this culture change is how do we tilt this back and say, okay, take the pressure off on the solution. Take it easy on the solution. We'll see it later. And put some pressure on you see my swing here, and put some pressure on understanding the problem. So this is the move. This is the move we try to do throughout the organization. Take some weight off the solution. Let the swing go and push down on understanding the problem. And here, if we go look at the organization and remember what we're doing with our lean tools, we can see that it changes the role of different people in the organization. We need a new role here. We need team leaders to support the team, to help the team to deliver and solve problems as they go. We need frontline managers to organize activities of support, maintenance of equipment, but maintenance of the teams, so that everybody's in a good order to be able to do the process. Then we need department heads that set up the right kind of policies so we can support the teams. Then we need we need people to coordinate. We need to understand the need for coordination, and this is one thing the pull system does, and the sensei will be leading that. And of course, the leader's role changes. It's no longer to just give orders and make sure they're followed. This is now to orient and support, to clarify the purpose and clarify autonomy, find budgets and recognize it. It's to create the organizational support that people need to make this work. We get into our third example. Again, it's a fairly big company. It's called Cdiscount. This is very different. It's a digital company. This is like a French response to Amazon, and not easy. And this is so it's translated non-food e-commerce player. We're talking 2,000 people, 3 billion in website sales. So it's quite a big company again. And about 60%, 66% is that's from a marketplace. And it's quite popular in France. I mean, 1 in 3 French people visit the site every month. I mean, we're talking very, very large numbers, 10,000 partner sellers. So here the CEO, Thomas Métivier, we got Thomas doing the learn TPS, practice TPS, teach TPS part of the job. And he when he took the company over, he really felt that he had to rebuild completely, turn it around. It's really a turnaround, and he struggled. He says at the beginning, the entire company fights back against what you're trying to do. But then 18 months later, 20 points of growth, customer satisfaction is up by 3 points. Seller irritants were very important, down by 20%, 40% new customers, and an improved quality of the catalog, and 17% in employee NPS. So again, we see the same kind of numbers, the same kind of transformation. We see here Thomas on the Gemba as the others. We see in his warehouse, we see him in his Obeya. And so we have here 3 examples of the CEO taking their organization and using lean to transform the culture in order to reinterpret the existing structure. But first, they have to understand this. So this is what we learned in Japan. Room for improvement is the largest room in the building, but the door to get into that room is really narrow. There are some very, very surprising things in TPS, and one of them is, yes, the focus is product market fit. That's where we go. There's the discussions usually we had with Takao Sakai from Japan about engineering. This is the key, is we forget it, that the reason we want to change the organization is to improve product market fit. And one of the counterintuitive findings of Toyota is, in order to do this, you do this by looking at lead time. And here, this is a slide from Hayashi-san, who passed away, sadly. He was a sensei of my father. But you really see the 2 elements. You see the Toyota production system, which is the production part. But you see also an element we don't talk nearly enough, which is the engineering Toyota system, where value is really created. Now, in order to do these transformations, my experience is that there is an entry ticket, because the door is narrow. The door is narrow. So there's an entry ticket. The first entry ticket is that the CEO must want personally to learn the Toyota production system and the Toyota product development system. It has to be their personal wish and drive and cause, and it starts with them. The second thing, as you know, that is also very difficult, is that the coaches must go beyond lean and understand the business. They must take a strategic vision of lean relating to the business, which is the point of my presentation. There is no lean in absolutes. It all depends on the business you're trying to affect. And they must engage together in looking at the problem solving on the Gemba, problem by problem, piecemeal. No global solutions until the bigger picture emerges. So why learn TPS and practice TPS and teach TPS? Because what we're talking about here is cultural learning. We know Toyota is doing better than their competitors. It's been doing it for a long time. We know they have lessons to, and this is not agile. This is not the 7 guys in a room coming up with something. This is now a century of engineers thinking it through. But the problem is we don't know what we don't know. So we don't necessarily understand what they teach us. And every time we do the Essentiel du Lean, we have this problem. We hear it from the horse's mouth, so to speak. We hear what they say, but it's so hard to know what they really mean. And it's so hard to be what it really means, because the TPS is a full system. I mean, if you choose and pick, you don't understand how it works. It's like saying the cow is just legs and a tail and a head, and you can pick the elements you want. But that's not how a cow functions. So the same thing with the TPS. It's not how it works. And there's no other way. And so because you don't know what you don't know, don't choose. For instance, if you take pull system, everybody hates that, it's too hard, because it has very interesting things to teach you. If you decide to do lean without the pull system, you're completely missing out on what makes it work, because it's like saying, well, I'll take the cow, but I don't need the head. It doesn't make any sense. So to conclude, here's a game plan. Here's a lean game plan. What does P equals L times O mean? First is obsess on product market fit. This is a reason we do things. This is where we find success in growth and profitability. everything you look at, is it from the customer? Is it value or is it a waste?
Mm.
Then, as we know, we have to go to the Gemba, but there, the strange place to look at the Gemba is start with lead times. Start with lead times. Don't start with irritants and all this nonsense. Start with understanding lead times and try to see how people solve problems piecemeal, one by one, because this will reveal how your organization really works. Then you run Kaizen events on every process lead time. And again, you run these on the lead time so people learn how their processes really work and what problems to solve. And remember my slide, I mean, understanding which problem you're solving is essential to this. Finally, you develop the management by creating this culture. This is what they seek, these CEOs, a culture of collaborative problem solving, mutual problem solving, and engagement in each of the functions. And the jackpot is when you can synchronize the functions to align the company with its strategy. And to do so, of course, to do so lastingly, you have to learn to promote. Remember you have to spot the skillful incompetence and actually promote the competent people, the people who buy into your lean effort, but not just talk about it, actually make sensible choices for the organization as a whole. Running out of time, Julie, back to you.
Thank you, Michael. That was very short but very insightful in not so many time. I guess we don't have a lot of time for question, but I have one which is very, very short from Todd. You were mentioning a book at the beginning of the session, Enidification. Is that right?
Oh, and shitification.
Enshitification,
Yes.
sorry.
Don't look at the cover. It's a terrible cover and the terrible title, but the book is actually quite profound. Yes.
Yeah, so that's the answer. Enshitification. All right, I
So-
think it's the end. Yeah. Chris, can you hear?
Yes.
You're back here. Okay. You're on mute.
Yeah, we have 20 seconds, Julie.
Oh, okay,
19,
20 seconds.
18.
Wow. Okay, well, that was very cool. I just picked up the parts that the room is big for improvement and the door is very narrow, but we can go.
Okay.
So
Julie.
thank you, Michael.
Okay.
Thank you.
Michael,
Chris.
Julie,
Yes.
Yeah.
au revoir. Thank you.
Au
Thank you
revoir.
so much for sharing.
Thanks, everyone.